let's start by kind of reminding ourselves what was the thesis that they're kind of putting forward right now. Kind of just a short, quick sentence. They're looking at what? How social media affects
the way adolescents communicate.
Okay. Oh, look at that. How social media has changed the way adolescents connect and communicate. So they kind of have a sentence in the beginning right here. Okay. So we're looking at this as a body paragraph for evidence. Does the evidence connect with the thesis? Does it support it? Does it kind of fit the right tone? Is it elaborated on enough? What do you notice? First, let's look for the evidence. What is the evidence? Okay, so we look for that quote. So there's one right here in the paragraph, right? We see this kind of quotation mark. Use social networking websites to enact their long-standing face-to-face patterns of interaction. Okay, what did it say first? Whereas teens who had strong social traits within face-to-face interaction use social networking websites to enact their long-standing face-to-face patterns of interaction, demonstrating that if teenagers were more social before resorting to social networking, that their strong interaction skills would be with them as they got older, building stronger friendships with others. Okay. All right. So, first, what are our first questions? Is this relevant? Does it fit? Is it a good, useful, relevant piece of evidence for this paragraph? What is the focus of the paragraph? The study? Okay, where do you see that? Tell us where you see that.
Well, the second part of the first sentence, they kind of introduce it, and then they go into detail in sentence 2.
So it's kind of this. So this is also where we're looking for signposts. So where it says, is now to apply the facts to a study. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what do the first sentences do of each paragraph? In this particular case, the signpost is they're referring to the thesis, knowing the common general effects on how social media has changed the way adolescents connect, is now to apply the facts to a study and see how the facts connect with the experiment. So they're kind of testing an experiment, it sounds like. That's how they're presenting this paragraph. I don't know. Does that work? What do you think? Connor, I saw your hand go up.
Well, do you know which of our opinions of their thesis is actually their thesis?
What's that?
Like when we were looking at...
I just saw this too. This is my first, this got turned in today. This is my first go-to. So I'm in the same boat as you. As a reader, I'm trying to make sense of which it is. And probably by the end, I'm going to have a pretty good idea which it is. I would agree with all of you that there's definitely something going on around trying to show how social media is being used by adolescents to interact in some kind of alternative way. But I'm also starting to get the impression from the signposts that are used and the language here that the goal is to just show us whether it's said on it. And that's what this kind of sentence is also suggesting, rather than creating an argument and showing what's really happening, but showing what other people are saying, which kind of creates like a book review kind of genre.
Well, I'm confused about it. It says to now apply the facts to a study. If you don't do the study, where do you get the facts?
Exactly. Good question. So this is a wording issue. Yeah. So if we're now going to apply the facts to a study, unless there was something about facts in a previous paragraph, which I cut, but I don't think there was. But I think it is this, and see how the facts connect with the experiment. There is something going on around that's not clear about what these facts are. Now I'm wondering if I cut it out of that paragraph. I don't think I did. So I'm going to write this. What facts? Okay, kind of apply the facts. Okay. But yeah, we kind of feel like something's missing. So psychologists at the University of Virginia wanted to find how interactions had changed from being a teenager to a young adult to see if positive social traits or depressive symptoms had carried over into the adulthood. This signal, to me, this is what's probably important and is probably, hopefully, going to be discussed. That there's something about interactions. So interactions during age group, right? Being a teenager to a young adult. Positive social traits or depression carried over, right? So are they going to talk about this? They found that those who were depressed as teens turned to have more online interpersonal actions and less face-to-face interactions. So one of the things that we should be seeing here, if you're not noticing this, is that this is summary still. This is presenting what others have said, right? The psychologists at U of Virginia did this study. They found that those who were depressed turned to more online interpersonal actions and less face-to-face. Now, this is probably important stuff, though, they turn to more online interpersonal and less face-to-face. That's probably going to be key to one of their pieces of evidence and to their argument. But it's still signaling summary words. Whereas teens who had strong social traits, and then we have a quote, right, which is, in this case, they're using the quote, use social networking websites to enact their long-standing face-to-face patterns of interactions, demonstrating if teens were more social before. This is still describing what the summary did. It's not yet telling us why it matters or how it's being analyzed. So there's a lot of summary in this paragraph, right? It's demonstrating this. Okay, so the next sentence, the significance to this study determined how social media changed the way adolescents connect with one another by how they started their interactions from younger age. Where does this fit? What is this sentence doing? Is it summary still? That last sentence.
Well, I think it is part of the argument. It's just, I think it needs to be elaborated on.
Okay. So if you were looking at your rubric here, would you see this as the evidence explicitly connected to the paragraph topic or thesis? Do you feel that this is connected to the thesis?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like that was Hurwitz's the significance is kind of more of an analysis of what they talked about. I don't know if it's necessarily directed to their thesis, because I honestly don't even know what it is.
But we think it's around. We do think it's about social media changing how adolescents interact. I mean, that's definitely kind of the overarching.
Then yeah, it's connected to the thesis. It's also like analysis of like what the study was about.
So it determined how social media changed the way adolescents connect by how they started their interactions from a young age. Now, I think then this is where I think you're saying elaboration more. What do you want to hear more if you had to close read this? Where do you think, how would you use this data? I mean, what is this data saying that they've chosen?
Well, I think the sentence itself is kind of confusing because it says that their social behavior is changing, but then it's also based on the way they interacted in their earlier childhood. So how is it changing if it's based on how they were before?
So we've got an issue of kind of age change. And then we have an issue around the type of interaction. Kind of, we're not sure which it is. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and then there's still nothing really about how it's changed.
Yeah, we don't.
Has changed.
Right. It's telling us, this is saying the study determined how social media changed, right? But it isn't telling us what the how is. The data might be a little bit, but the writer isn't telling us yet. So we've got, if we were to unpack this, I'm going to go back to the highlighter. I'm going to have this is going to be totally impossible to read, huh? Psychologists find interactions change. So there's this issue of they were looking to see if it changed. They found that those who were depressed as teens turned to more interpersonal actions and less face-to-face interaction. So there is a change, right? They're saying there is a change. So how did it change? It's how much face-to-face interaction versus online activity. But that hasn't been restated yet. This is saying they did something. What changed? They turned to more online. They basically went to Facebook to hang out with their friends more than seeing their friends in person. And if they would have restated that to me in those kinds of terms, I would go, oh, I see. So that makes sense. But then it says where teens who had strong social traits within face-to-face interaction, so people who already were like interpersonal, I think this is from the previous paragraph, they used the social networking to enact long-standing face-to-face. So they just did more of what they were already doing. So what we need to hear, it sounds like, is that the teenagers were more social before, would be them, but that their strong interaction skills would be with them as they got older, building stronger friendships with others. So it's unpacking that again, maybe rephrasing that and then connecting and telling us this is a way in which social media is changing the way people connect with one another. But is it changing the way they connect? What do you think?
Maybe for like the one side of things, but then for the people that were already strong in that too, it's not really, I mean, I guess it's like
And that's what we're not hearing.
causing a greater interaction that it's not changing, it's maybe just making it
Right.
more noticeable.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what we're hearing here, and what's happened is we've had to do the work to make sense of this, is that it's social media isn't changing the way all adolescents connect, right? It's changing the way a certain group of adolescents connected. Those who were already social just used social media as one more way. But those who were not social face-to-face, they actually changed their behaviors and became really more social, but using online places. It's kind of what I think they're saying, I think, if I'm understanding their evidence correctly. So the how, what social media is changing isn't just all adolescents, it's groups of adolescents. And that's what this is showing, but that's not being unpacked for us as well. So if I were reading this paper, this would be one where I'd put a little check on, where would you put checks under textual evidence? Offered, is it well developed? I'd want more well developed. I'd want to hear a little bit more about the A plus B equals C to understand that connection that's being made. So right now this only has one piece of evidence, notice that too. Generally when the paper is more appropriately complex, it has multiple pieces of evidence kind of in conversation with each other, sometimes within a paragraph, sometimes across paragraphs. But right now this is just focused on a study. What we really want to hear, as I want to hear as a reader, to really see that argument is I want to see not what the study shows, but I want to understand how social media, what is this paragraph about?
It's establishing who exactly is being changed.
Yeah,
Instead
who.
of saying
Mhm.
how social media is changing, you say,
Yep.
social media is changing this group of people.
Yep. Who is being changed? Thank you. And what does the age range thing have to do? Does that matter? I mean, there's
I think
something
the
around
only thing that
adolescence.
adolescence is relevant to is because those are the types of groups that use these things more often. So
Well, and that's who the study looked at. They're looking at adolescents, but they're looking at them once they become young adults. So they're also talking about kind of young adulthood as a group, and that different types of people within a certain age bracket are interacting differently with the media and their interpersonal relationships. Okay, so we've unpacked this pretty good. We're gonna give that one a rest, and we're gonna move on to your papers. Okay, all right.